You got Marcus Morris, you got 420 plus point scorers, and here's Devin Booker. No way, no way, no way! How did he make that? Bro, he had Kawhi and Paul George on him, bro. Dude, you got Kawhi. Look at this. Look, Kawhi jumping. Paul George on him, bro. Oh my God. Now I gotta freeze frame it up in here, dude. Dude, this is, I love this, man. This is great. Like, bro, this is insanity. This is two of the best two-way players in the NBA. I don't know. That's fantastic defense. I don't know what else you could do over here. If anything, this is a horrific shot. It's just, I guess he got to a spot. But oh my God. As a NBA news analyst and an NBA news reporter, as well as someone that likes to slightly dive into the X's and O's of basketball, there are specific topics that are more attractive and appealing to talk about for a mass commercial audience. Have you ever wondered why LeBron James is always being talked about on ESPN, why the Dallas Cowboys are always being talked about by Stephen A. Smith despite him having a clear disdain for him? Because those are large market teams. A lot of people understand and know who they are, and as a result, they'll drive in more clicks and views. But there comes a point where, as a NBA analyst and an NBA fan, I can no longer ignore a specific narrative. I've had people telling me to make videos on the Suns many times over the past year, even before the NBA restart, and for the most part, I've ignored them for this main reason. And this is me being completely honest with you guys. This is me being completely real with you guys. It's not sexy to talk about a team that has been through a perpetual rebuilding process like the Phoenix Suns. But today, I want to discuss one of the most unusual characteristics about the Phoenix Suns. Yes, I understand they're currently 4-0 in the bubble. Yes, I understand that Devin Booker is finally playing within a system that puts him in the best position to make phenomenal and remarkable plays like that game winner over Paul George. And yes, I am going to give you a brief history of why this is so strange, because it's not really a blueprint any team wants to mimic. It's more that the Suns made one decision that went really right for them. Now, before we get to this video, guys, just a reminder, I'm giving away multiple copies of NBA 2K21 on my Twitter and Instagram page. A link to that's in the description down below. I also live stream on Twitch on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays at 9 p.m. Pacific time. Now that that's out of the way, let's jump straight into it, because I'm going to give you where the Phoenix Suns are right now, and I'm going to also tell you how they got here, because their history is something, once again, that I would never want to mimic. It's not like the OKC Thunder's blueprint from the early 2010s or the Golden State Warriors blueprint from the mid-2010s that you want to go ahead and mimic to potentially bring yourself a good roster. It's more the fact that they kind of made the right decisions and kind of made the wrong decisions, and all of that put them in the position that they are right now, and things are finally beginning to come together. All the pieces are beginning to come together, and I feel like it's really important to point out what those pieces are. But before we get to that, we need to discuss where they are currently. So I want you to pay attention to some of these statistics I'm going to throw at you. Cameron Johnson, a player that personally I've never paid much attention to, has 99 threes in only 53 career games. If he gets one more three in the next 18 games, which he's probably destined to do so, he will be the fastest player in Phoenix Suns history to get 100 threes to start his career. And on top of that, the Phoenix Suns are currently undefeated. We all understand that. But why are they undefeated? Well, take a look at this. For the entire season of the 2018 to 2019 season, the Phoenix Suns were 12th in pace, 105.9 in offensive rating, which is 28th in the league out of 30, and 115.1 in defensive rating, which is 29th in the league out of 30. And that makes sense. If you look at their roster, a lot of it was composed of draft busts and players that are good at shooting threes, but not so good at defending. And yes, even Trevor Ariza falls into this list because Trevor Ariza was a complete non-factor on the defensive end last season. Players like Trevor Ariza, Ryan Anderson, Tyson Chandler, which got traded midway through the season, Jamal Crawford, Jimmer Fredette, Josh Jackson didn't really provide much value on the defensive side of the ball and were very low efficiency, high volume scorers on the offensive side of the ball. Although I did appreciate the risk they took with Jimmer Fredette. Now, if you want to compare that to this season, before the bubble, the Phoenix Suns had an offensive rating of 110.8, which is 15th in the league out of 30, and 111.6, which is 18th in the league out of 30, with a pace of 101.5, which is kind of higher than the season before. Now, if you want to compare this to the brief 4 games we saw in the bubble, the Phoenix Suns are currently 10th on offense, 4th on defense, and 3rd in overall net rating in the bubble. And they're the only team to win all 4 games thus far. How could this be? Well, for one, DeAndre Ayton is finally back. He was back in the middle of the season after getting suspended for 25 games, but it wasn't like they had to integrate him back into the offense as they were moving forward. Monty Williams had some time to finally integrate DeAndre Ayton into a good lineup that puts the Phoenix Suns in the best position to succeed. And if you look at the lineup, one of their best lineups featured DeAndre Ayton, Devin Booker, Mikal Bridges, and Ricky Rubio, and Cameron Johnson. And this lineup has a net rating of plus 18 per 100 possessions in 62 minutes of playing time. And that is the 3rd best 5-man lineup in the bubble. Now, on top of this, we don't even have Kelly Oubre back. But once Kelly Oubre comes back, the 5-man lineup of DeAndre Ayton, Devin Booker, Mikal Bridges, Ricky Rubio, and Kelly Oubre Jr. has a net rating of 20.2 per 100 possessions. Now, they only played 226 minutes so far, but for the most part, this is one of their best lineups, and we haven't even seen it yet. So let's discuss, how did the Suns get so good? What did they do to improve from last year to this year and from this year to the bubble? And most importantly, what's holding them back from competing for championships? Well, it's very simple, guys, and let me take you through a brief history of the Phoenix Suns, because the Phoenix Suns were not really known for being an incredibly stable organization. They weren't known for even drafting well. Going back to 2012, take a look at their draft picks. They have Kendall Marshall in the 2012 NBA draft, which honestly, I don't really fault them because there wasn't really anyone good being selected from Kendall Marshall's pick all the way until the 35th pick and the 39th pick, where Draymond Green and Chris Middleton came off of the board. You move to the next year, and the Phoenix Suns draft Alex Len in one of the weakest drafts in recent memory, because the only good player that came out of the 2013 NBA draft, aside from Victor Oladipo, was Giannis Antetokounmpo, and he was a little bit of a project. The Suns, in my opinion, absolutely knocked the 2014 NBA draft out of the park when they drafted Bogdan Bogdanovic and TJ Warren, but ultimately we know what would happen to TJ Warren. They would trade him for cash considerations, despite him averaging 18 points per game and having a similar player efficiency rating to Lou Williams, while also costing a similar amount of money as Lou Williams did. And to this day, I still think that trade was very ill-advised. It's not like TJ Warren has recently become a good player. He has always been a solid player. Their best pick out of all of these drafts in the past decade is obviously Devin Booker, and he was drafted with the 13th pick in the 2015 NBA draft. In 2016, they drafted Dragon Bender, and I don't really blame them for taking that risk, because a lot of people thought that Dragon Bender had the potential to be the next Kristaps Porzingis. That didn't end up coming out to be, but it wasn't like there was any other great players in the 2016 NBA draft that they could have drafted at that position. I can say the same thing for Josh Jackson, but that's not necessarily true, because in 2017, they could have easily drafted De'Aaron Fox, paired him with Devin Booker, and that would have been an ideal fit for the offense that they're running right now. But at the same time, I was absolutely mesmerized by Josh Jackson's two-way potential and by how athletic he was. And ultimately, I would have taken the bait as well. I was actually knocking the Celtics for drafting Jason Tatum over Josh Jackson. And it just goes to show that the NBA draft is literally like playing roulette. It's really hard to knock these picks out of the park, and a lot of it has to do with luck. In 2018, I believe that they did a phenomenal job in that draft. I understand not taking Luka Doncic. If you're the Phoenix Suns and you whiffed on Josh Jackson, you whiffed on Dragon Bender, you want to take the surefire #1 overall pick. And they did that by drafting DeAndre Ayton, who still has tremendous potential and is a double-double threat currently. And he's only 22. He's shown the ability to occasionally step back and hit the three. So I really like that pick. And then they also traded for Mikal Bridges and gave up on Josh Jackson. So if you look at the Phoenix Suns, it's not like they've drafted really well, but they did place an emphasis on Devin Booker getting the help that he needs and also putting him in the right system. Hiring Monty Williams to put Devin Booker in the proper positions to score was absolutely instrumental for the development of their young star. But it goes beyond that because the Phoenix Suns made some phenomenal moves in the offseason this past year, acquiring players like Dario Saric, a great and capable three-point scorer that could add another dimension to this offense. But they didn't stop there. They acquired a player who was clearly trending upwards, who was eerily reminiscent of a player that they had in the past. And that's Ricky Rubio. Coming into the NBA draft out of the Spanish League, Ricky Rubio drew so many comparisons to Steve Nash, and they made sense at the time, because if you looked at his highlights coming out into the NBA, the way he played was very similar to Steve Nash. The only problem was Ricky Rubio couldn't shoot threes the way Steve Nash could, but he was a savant on the defensive end of the ball. He was really good at making plays for his team. The only issue was to stop Ricky Rubio, all he had to do was back a few inches away from him. But now, this year, Ricky Rubio improved his three-point percentage from a 31% from three to a 36% from three in his first season with the Phoenix Suns, and he does it with confidence. It's not like he's just getting these open threes to take. He will pull up from three in your face and sink it in your face. Once you start respecting Ricky Rubio's three-point jumper, that's when he got you. That's when he could dominate in the pick and roll. That's when he could find the plethora of wide open three-point shooters to kick it out to. And that's when Devin Booker is at his best, because now the Phoenix Suns aren't necessarily playing through Devin Booker. Devin Booker is running around off screens. He could create plays for himself on the ball, but they don't necessarily need to give him the ball and have him isolate. And that's the scariest part. I think the most important thing for the Phoenix Suns this season and why they've been so good is the fact that they've acquired big men that are enforcers on the defensive side of the ball. Frank Kaminsky, for example, great player that can hit the three, also provides you some energy on defense. But if you're not even thinking of Frank the Tank, one of the most underrated defenders in the past 2 or 3 years in the NBA, averaging a career-high 11.5 points per game. So I know what you guys might be thinking at this point. Mike, what's holding the Phoenix Suns back? Well, the answer is very simple. If you look at the Phoenix Suns, there's one thing that just sticks out to you the most while they're on paper. This is a team that is extremely young, and I think that they're done constructing their roster. I don't really see any players that could help them aside from maybe a player that has won a couple of championships that could bring in some veteran experience. So a player like maybe JaVale McGee, maybe Quinn Cook, heck, even a player like Patrick McCaw, although he doesn't have tremendous experience, he's been on a lot of championship teams. A player that could tell you what it takes to lock in and finally win those NBA championships. This is a very young team and a very inexperienced team. The only player that has had any championship experience at all is James Jones, and he did it as a role player for the Miami Heat. I believe the Phoenix Suns, they're not going to make their deep run this year, but I believe they have what it takes down the line. I feel like their core is set with Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, Mikal Bridges, Kelly Oubre Jr., Ricky Rubio, and I absolutely love this bench. This bench is absolutely terrifying on the defensive end. They're not necessarily going to score, but if you put out Ricky Rubio with this lineup from time to time, then I believe in their ability to get some baskets made while their starters are getting rest and also suffocate opposing teams on the defensive side of the ball. And I believe that's why they're playing so well. So let me know in the comment section down below, what do you think? How do you feel about the Phoenix Suns? Do you believe they're going to be a threat in this year's NBA playoffs? Do you think they can make it into the play-in tournament and possibly make some noise in the play-in tournament? Or is there something that I'm not mentioning? Do you think they need to acquire a specific type of player to take them to the next level? Maybe their core is not good enough. Maybe you feel like they need to acquire a crazy all-star like a Damian Lillard, although I don't think that's really something that could happen, or another crazy star player to take them to the next level. I'd like to hear what you have to say. Aside from that, if you enjoy the content, please leave a like because it really helps the channel grow. I'm your boy, Theflightmike, and I'm dropping the mic until next time.